I would like to invite everyone on the phone patch tonight to experience their very first darshan as we sing two mantras that Lanello loves to sing. I call to beloved Lanello to stand with me at this altar and to lead us in singing this mantra.
Perhaps we might try that mantra that we haven't tried for a while, the Indian mantra, you know, Om Namo Narayanaya. Now, anybody who's read the Mu books, all the Mu books, will probably be familiar with the Narayanaya, understand what it really means. Why don't we have a little striking of the chords? And we'll do it in perfect rhythm. Now start out first, I'm going to do it for you. Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. Now you try it together and see if you can do it. Om Namo Narayanaya, 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 Om Namo Narayanaya. Some of you may be able to feel that. And so we'll try one more, the Om Triambakam. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanant Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat. We all try that together. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat. Om Triambakam Yejamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshya Mamritat.
I think, as you all know, on the patch, we are reading The Masters and the Path by C.W. Leadbeater. And we are on chapter 6, in the middle of that chapter. Chapter 6, pages 139 to 149, The Power of Sound, the Power of Sound. We may now consider the type of mantra which works only by its sound. The vibration which the sound sets in motion impinges upon the various bodies of man and tends to bring them into harmony with it. A sound, in the first place, is an undulation in the air, and every musical sound has a number of overtones which it sets in motion as well. 4 or 5 or more overtones are detected and recognized in music, but the oscillations extend a great deal further than the ear can follow. Corresponding waves are set up in higher and finer matter altogether, and therefore the chanting of a note or a series of notes produces effects upon the higher vehicles. There are sounds, I suppose we must still call them sounds, overtones, which are too fine to affect the air. Nevertheless, they set etheric matter in motion, and that etheric matter communicates its oscillations to the man who recites the mantra and also to other people around him. And if he is directing his will towards any particular person, to that person the vibration will assuredly go. Thus, the mantras which work by sound may produce decidedly material results on the physical plane, though there are other and finer waves sent forth at the same time which may affect the higher vehicles. Such a mantra usually consists of several ordered sounds, very resonant and sonorous in character. Sometimes a single syllable only is used, as in the sacred word Om. But there are several ways of saying that, and they produce quite different results according to the notes upon which its syllables are chanted, and the way in which they are pronounced. For some purpose, we emphasize and prolong the open sound. We combine the A, U into O, strengthen that, and carry it on for perhaps half the time of recitation, and then change to the M sound. But for other purposes, the O should be quite short, and the humming inside the head and in the centers, which is a very powerful sound, should be prolonged. The results of these two methods differ greatly. When the O is prolonged, we are affecting one another and the surrounding world, but with the long M, almost the entire effect produced acts upon ourselves. Sometimes the 3 letters Om are sounded separately. Again, it may be taken on many different notes in succession in a sort of arpeggio. I have heard that according to the Indian books, there are supposed to be about 170 ways of pronouncing the word, each with its different effect, and it is thought to be the most powerful of all mantras. This Hindu sacred word corresponds to the Egyptian Amen. From that word also was made the eon of the Greeks and the avium in Latin. The word eon is one derivative of it. It has been said that Om is the word which represents the name of the Logos, the ineffable name, in our 5th root race, and that the word used in a similar way in the 4th root race was Tao, or Ta. Swami T. Suba Ro once told us that these substituted words, which are given in each root race, are all syllables of a great word which will be complete in the 7th root race. The special effect of this word when properly sounded at the beginning of meditation or in a meeting is always like a call to attention. It arranges the particles of the subtle bodies in much the same way as an electric current acts upon the atoms in a bar of iron. Before the passing of such a current, the ultimate atoms in the metal lie pointing in various directions. But when the bar is magnetized by the electric current, they all turn over and lean in one direction. Just so, at the sound of the sacred word, every particle in us responds, and we are then in the best condition to benefit by the meditation or study which is to follow. At the same time, it acts as a call to other beings, human and non-human, who at once gather round, some with understanding of the meaning and power of the word, and others brought by the strangely attractive sound. This matter of sound is one that penetrates very deeply. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made in the first place. The Logos, or Word, is the first emanation from the infinite, and that quite certainly is far more than a mere figure of speech. It represents a fact, although that emanation takes place at a level where there could not be anything such as we mean by sound, for there would be no air to convey it. Yet that which corresponds to and acts like sound is the power which is employed to create the universe. I do not know that we can hope to have any understanding on this plane, in this world down here, of what is meant by that creative word. He spake, and it was done. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. This was the first expression of the deity. The eternal thought concealed in darkness comes forth as the creative word. Perhaps because of this great truth, words sung or spoken down here invoke higher power, power out of all proportion to the level to which they themselves belong. I am sure that there is another side of this whole question of sound which our minds cannot reach at present. We can only faintly adumbrate it, but at least we can see that the power of sound is a very great and wonderful thing. All mantras that depend upon the power of sound are valuable only in the language in which they have been arranged. If we translate such a one into another language, we shall have another and quite different group of sounds. Broadly speaking, the good mantra which is intended to harmonize the body and to produce beneficent results consists largely of long, open vowels. We find this in our own sacred word, and the same is true of the Amen of the Egyptians, which has been handed down into the Christian church. It is, by the way, best sounded on 2 notes. The church has its traditional way of taking it on 2 notes, a semitone apart, usually F sharp and G. Mantras which are used for evil purposes contain nearly always short vowels and consonants of a tearing and disruptive character, such as shrim, shrang, or phut. These uncouth exclamations are delivered with a furious energy and spitefulness which certainly makes them terribly powerful for evil. Sometimes all the vowels in turn are inserted into these cacophonous combinations of consonants, and their utterances conclude with some peculiarly explosive curses which it seems impossible to express in any ordinary system of letters. In Oriental countries where they know something about these things, I fear that the mantra is often used for evil purposes. I have come across a good deal of that in connection with voodoo and obeah ceremonies, of which I saw something both in the West Indies and South America. And I know that there is much hatred put into such spells and incantations. This is a definition of obeah. Obeah, also obi or obi, often capped, of African origin, akin to such and such, a creeper used in making charms, circa 1760. A system of belief among Negroes, chiefly of the British West Indies, the Guianas, and the southeastern United States, that is characterized by the use of sorcery and magical ritual. Our connection with mantras will be only with those of a beneficent and kindly nature, and not with the maleficent. But good and ill alike have the same method of working. They are all intended to produce vibrations in the subtle bodies either of the reciter or of those at whom he aims the mantra. Sometimes they are intended to impose entirely new rates of oscillation. It strikes Western minds oddly that people should be recommended to recite a mantra 3,000 times. Our first feeling is, how can we find time? We say that time is money. The Oriental says that time is not. It is a difference in the point of view. The Oriental methods and ideas are often unsuited to our Western lives, but nonetheless they have their value for those for whom they are intended. The Brahmana practically spends his life in religious recitations. For every act that he performs all through the day is always accompanied by some text or pious thought. It is a life lived absolutely in religion, or rather it is supposed to be such. In many cases today, it is an outer form only, a sort of shell, but men still recite the words, even though they may not put the old life and energy into them. They have plenty of time. They can well afford to repeat a phrase 108 times a day, and the object of their doing so is perfectly clear. The Christ is said to have warned his disciples not to use vain repetitions when they prayed, as did the heathen. And from that text, the deduction has been made that all repetitions are useless. They assuredly would be so in an invocation addressed to the deity, for they would imply that he had not heard the first request. They would be or should be unnecessary for disciples, for men who have already made some progress along the path of development. To formulate an intention clearly and to express it once strongly should surely be sufficient for them. But the ordinary man of the world has by no means reached that stage. It often needs a long course of steady hammering to impress a new vibration upon him, and so for him repetitions are far from useless, for they are deliberately intended to produce definite results. The constant impinging of these sounds and of the various undulations which they set up upon the different vehicles does tend steadily to bring those vehicles into harmony with a particular set of ideas. This tuning up of vibrations is analogous to the work done by an Indian guru upon his pupils, which has already been mentioned in chapter 4. All the time the waves radiating from his astral body are playing upon their astral bodies. The waves from his mental and causal bodies are playing upon theirs. And the result is that because his vibrations are by the hypothesis stronger than those of his pupils, he gradually brings them into closer and closer harmony with himself, if they are in any way capable of being so tuned. The constant recitation of a mantra is intended to tune up the particular part of the mental and astral bodies at which it is aimed, and there is no doubt at all that it can and does produce powerful results. The same methods are prescribed in Christian lands. One may often see a Roman Catholic reciting his Aves and Paternosters many times over. Generally, he just mutters them, and so they are of little use to him except for the thoughts that they may suggest to him. In India, mantras are always chanted, and the chanted mantra does produce an effect. That is one reason why the older languages are better in this respect than modern tongues. Modern languages are generally spoken quickly and abruptly, and only the Italian, Spanish, and Greek peasants seem to speak in the old way in long, musical cadences. In the liberal Catholic Church, however, we especially recommended that its service shall always be in the language of the country, because we find that far more devotion is aroused in the people if they understand clearly what is being said and can join intelligently in the ceremonies. But there can be no question that the Latin is more sonorous. Many mantras of this nature have no special meaning, are little more than a mere collection of vowels in the Pistis Sophia, the well-known Gnostic treatise. There are a number of such meaningless mantras marked in a way that must have indicated chanting. Such rolling, sonorous sounds as we find in the Indian mantras impose their rates of vibrations gradually on the various bodies, and so can be used to economize force. Anything whatever that we do by a mantra, we could do by our own will without the mantra. But the mantra is like a piece of labor-saving machinery. It sets up the required vibrations, doing part of the work for us and making it easier in consequence. We may therefore regard it as a means for economizing force. Another point with regard to mantras, which is stressed in the Indian books, is that students are forbidden to use them in the presence of coarse or evil-minded people, because the power of a mantra will often intensify evil as well as good. If there were a person present who could not answer to the vibrations in their higher form, he might well receive a lower octave, which would be quite likely to strengthen the evil in him. We should never use a mantra where there are people who are likely to be injured by it. Madame Blavatsky told us, I remember, that a mantra might be recited not for oneself at all, but with a special view to someone whom it was thought it might help. In this way, we might recite the sacred word or the gayatri or any of those beautiful Buddhist mantras which flow so sweetly, thinking strongly of a special person and projecting towards him the force of the mantra. But she advised us to use these things with care. Again, she gave a caution that no one should attempt to use a mantra which is too high for him. None such will be given to us by our teachers. But I would say this as a caution to neophytes, that if the reciting even of the sacred word in any particular way should produce headache or a feeling of nausea or faintness, it should be stopped at once. We should go on working at the development of our characters and try it again in a few months. In using the word, we are invoking great forces, and if we are not yet quite up to their level, they may not be harmonious, and the result may be not invariably good. In addition to the effect of the vibration of the chanted sound, many of these mantras resemble our third type in having powers associated with them. For example, certain angels are connected with the gayatri and the tisarana, though they belong to very different types. The gayatri is perhaps the greatest and most beautiful of all the ancient mantras. It has been chanted all over India from time immemorial, and the Deva kingdom has learnt to understand it and respond to it in a very striking manner, a manner which in itself is most significant, as showing that in antiquity so remote that the very memory of it has been forgotten, the altruistic use of such mantras was fully comprehended and practiced. It begins always with the sacred word Om and with the enumeration of the planes upon which its action is desired, the three worlds in which man lives, the physical, the astral, and the mental. And as each plane is mentioned, the devas belonging to that plane flock round the singer with joyous enthusiasm to do the work which by the recitation of the mantra he is about to give them. Students will remember that in India, Shiva is sometimes called Nilakantha, the blue-throated, and that there is a legend connected with that title. It is interesting to note that some of the angels who respond when the Gayatri is chanted bear that characteristic of the blue throat and are clearly first ray in type. Karanjit Sian is going to demonstrate the mantra and teach us the mantra. There are a few more notes that go with this mantra. This is probably the most important mantra we will ever recite throughout our lifetime. So this wonderful mantra is an invocation to the sun, of course really to the solar logos, who stands behind that grandest of all symbols, and the great shaft of light which immediately pours down upon and into the reciter comes as though from the physical sun in whatever direction that sun may happen to be. This shaft of light is white, tinged with gold, and shot with that electric blue which is so often seen in connection with any manifestation of the power of the first ray. But when it has filled the very soul of the reciter, it promptly shoots from him again in 7 great rays of cones having the colors of the spectrum. It is as though the singer acts as a prism, yet the color rays which dart forth are of a shape the reverse of what we usually find in such cases. Commonly, when we send out rays of spiritual force, they spring forth from a point in the body, the heart, the brain, or some other center, and as they shoot out, they steadily broaden fan-wise, as do those shining from a lighthouse. But these rays start from a basis wider than the man himself, a basis which is the circumference of his aura, and instead of widening out, they decrease to a point, just as do the rays of a conventional star, except that they are, of course, cones of light instead of mere triangles.
I'm going to chant the Gayatri mantra in a manner very similar to how it is chanted in India. I'm going to chant it 3 times, somewhat slowly. Much later on, when I will have some opportunity to lay some background on the Gayatri mantra, we can go over the how to say it in more detail a little later on. So this is how it sounds. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वाहा तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि Diyo yo naha prachodayat.
Do you want to give the translation?
So this translates to something like this. Om, the elements of earth, sky, and heaven, on the resplendent glory of that Savitur, our Lord, whom we adore, on that divine radiance let us meditate. May He inspire us with devotion and understanding. Now, Savitur is a special name for God Surya. It is a name which tends to get used in connection with the Gayatri mantra. And later on in Leadbeater's discussion on the Gayatri mantra, he talks about this special name Savitur in a footnote. Now, one of the things we have read so far in Leadbeater's description of the mantra is that Leadbeater says that it begins with the addressing of the three planes of existence. And he says something like the physical plane, the mental plane, and the astral plane. Now, the way it actually translates is the Bhur is the earth plane, Bhuva is the sky plane, and Swaha is a contraction of the word Swarg, which means heaven. So, in many ways, Leadbeater is right because he gives the esoteric meanings of these elements, and so he translates earth into physical plane, sky into mental plane, but he translates the heaven world into the astral plane because in theosophy there's often a tendency to use the word astral when actually what they really mean is sometimes etheric.
Another remarkable feature is that these 7 rays do not radiate in a circle in all directions, but only in a semicircle in the direction which the reciter is facing. Furthermore, these rays have a curious appearance of solidifying as they grow narrower until they end in a point of blinding light. And a still more curious phenomenon is that these points act as though they were living. If a man happens to come in the way of one of them, that point curves with incredible rapidity and touches his heart and his brain, causing them to glow momentarily in response. Each ray appears to be able to produce this result on an indefinite number of people in succession. In testing it on a closely packed crowd, we found that the rays apparently divided the crowd between them, each acting on the section that happened to be in front of it and not interfering with any other section. As to the question of the language of the mantra, it seems to be of minor importance. The repetition of the words in English having a clear intention behind them produced the full effects. The recitation of the same thing in Sanskrit with the same intention brought about an identical result, but in addition built round the radiating shafts a sound hyph form resembling a wonderfully intricate kind of carved wooden framework. It provided us with something which might be imaged as a 7-fold gun through which the rays were shooting out. This sound form extended only for a short distance and did not seem to make any difference at all to the power or size of the rays.
Mother asked me to put together a little teaching on the mantras as they are spoken in the East, in India in particular. And so I decided to put together about 4 or 5 slides. I'm more used to giving presentations with computer slides, so this is a little bit unusual for me. I have the slides, but you don't have the slides. The word mantra is a combination of 2 Sanskrit words. Manas, which means mind, and yantra, a yantra, which means instrument. So you can say mantra equals manas plus yantra, a yantra. So can you say manas?
Manas.
Yantra?
Yantra.
In many ways, you have been using the word manas If you recall, in the last class, we sang a bhajan, Mansa Bhajore Guru Charanam, which means Manasa, with the mind, with the devotion of my mind, I touch the feet of my Guru. That's how it translates. So you're familiar with the word manas. Now, so if you look at mantra, it's an instrument of the mind. Now, if you take a microbiologist, they have instruments also. They use electron microscopes to examine the subject and object of viruses and microbes. The astronomer uses a telescope. So what does the alchemist or the scientist of the spirit use? He uses the instrument of the mind, mantra. He uses this to examine the mind of God, to get in contact with the mind of God. So it's almost like when we say the mantra, we build a thread of contact to that mind of God. A thread, another name for that is sutra. And the mind of God, the spirit of God is Atman within us. So this is the Atman Sutra, Atma Sutra, which you find very often mentioned in theosophy books, the Atma Sutra. And in my mind, it is somewhat akin to, corresponds to the concept of crystal code. So through the mantra, we contact this mind of God, and we are able to go to that mind and, for example, in a decree session, through that Atma Sutra, we can contact the mandala for that particular decree session and get in touch with the objective of what we are doing for that particular session. Another thing a mantra does is it increases the devotion to God, and it also is used for effecting change. Now, in India, mantras are said as hymns or chants in a verse form, and they possess magical or divine power. And mantras can be classified into two types: Shruti mantra and Smriti mantra. What is Shruti? Shruti mantra is that which is divinely heard, which means that at some time one of the ancient rishis, perhaps the Sapt rishis or the 7 rishis, which took down many of the great teachings of the Vedas and other teachings, they are the ones who received this mantra. They heard it divinely. So you find that I would say that our dictations are Shruti mantras because they fall into that category. They're divinely heard. The other type is Smriti mantra, and that means that which is remembered, so that which was written and passed down through the ages. And so an example of that would be the Bible. The biblical teaching would be the Smriti type teachings. The mantras, they actually form the original body of the Vedas. You know there are many different Vedas, and they were compiled into book forms, and then the teachings to explain the mantras and the rituals came after that. So the mantras were the core teaching of the Vedas. Now, some people say that there are over 70 million Vedic mantras. There's lots of them. They cover topics such as mystery of creation, dealing with natural elements, everyday life and behavior, granting long life, averting evil, looking after bad weather, overcoming vices. They have special mantras for overcoming the vice of gambling, which was very popular in ancient India. Some of you are familiar with the story of the Mahabharata, may know that Yudhishthira, who was the eldest of the Pandav brothers, he lost his entire kingdom, his fortune, his brother, and his wife in a gambling incident to his half-brother, who was Duryodhana. Now, we already know one of these mantras which is used for granting long life and averting evil, and that's the Om Triambak mantra. Next to the Gayatri mantra, that is considered to be one of the most sacred or the most popular mantras in India. And it is actually called It's called Maha Mrityunjay Japa Mantra. Maha means great. Mrityu is death. Mrityunjay, Jay is victory. So that which gives the great mantra which gives victory over death. And japa is you repeat it. Japa is a form of repetition of the mantra. So we already know that mantra. Now, coming back to the Gayatri mantra. The Gayatri mantra is considered to be the most sacred mantra in India. There was a time in India where the Gayatri mantra was not recited in public. It was not recited to certain classes of people. They could not say it. It is called the mother of the Vedas, Ved Matri. Ved is Ved, the Vedas. Matra is mother, Ved Matri, the mother of the Vedas. And it is said that the entire essence of all the Vedic teachings is concentrated in that mantra we just said. It is said to embody Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and Vedas all together. The Skanda Purana says that there's nothing superior to the Gayatri mantra. So you have all kinds of praises for the action of the Gayatri mantra. The Aitreya Brahmana says that those who wish to go to heaven should say the mantra 1,000 times, presumably 1,000 times a day. It's something like Leadbeater's comment that sometimes the masters in the East tell the disciples to say a mantra 3,000 times.
David's already started over there. David Vaughn, he's already reciting this mantra.
Yeah, some people have a head start from previous embodiments also.
He has a head start from running every day.
Now, another name of the Gayatri mantra is also called the Savitri mantra. And as in the mantra, we actually use the word Savitur. It's also called the Savitur mantra for the sun god, is to the god Surya. And some people believe that this mantra was composed by Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra was a great rishi, a Brahma rishi, who lived at the time of Lord Ram. Many of you have read the Ramayana, watched those videotapes, the Ramayana, and if I recall correctly, it's videotape number 2, where
We know.
as you know, I've seen the videotapes a few times. So it's in that videotape number 2, I think episode number 5, Vishwamitra gives the teaching of invoking the divine weapons to Lord Ram, who's learning to invoke these divine weapons, which he then needs to use in the battle with Ravan, the king of Lanka at the time. And Vishwamitra is a very interesting sage because he was born into the Kshatriya family. Kshatriyas are those who are kings and rulers of the world, leaders. And he got into a difference in opinion with another rishi who was Vaishist. And Vishwamitra was very proud of his power because he was a great king. But all of his armies could not confront Vaishist. And he lost to Vaishist. A single man defeated all of his armies. So Vishwamitra resolved to become like Vaishist. And so he had to pass many tests, and he failed many of them. And then he kept on repeating them until he finally passed them, and he became a Brahma Rishi. In other words, he graduated from the Kshatriya class to the Brahman class. Now, others believe that the Gayatri mantra is even more ancient than the Vishwamitra, and that the 4 Vedas they actually sprang from the Gayatri mantra. Now, Gayatri mantra is said to be recited, it should be recited by all twice-born Brahmins. Now, what's a twice-born Brahmin? It's like a born-again Christian, right? Now, I don't know if you realize it, but everybody in this room is a Brahmin. I'll show you why. I can prove it to you why everybody is a Brahmin. Brahman means those who worship Brahma, the Atman within us. Now, we worship the I Am presence, which is the Atman within us. In fact, I remember a dictation by Sanat Kumara. He said, the Brahman within us is the I am presence within us. So we worship Brahman, and when you probably came into these teachings, it came as a revelation that the mighty I am presence of Brahman existed within you, so that was the spiritual birth. So in India, the Brahman, the second birth, the spiritual birth, takes place in a special ceremony. It's called the thread ceremony. You might notice that some Brahmins, they actually wear a thread around the neck, and as part of the ceremony, the guru gives the gayatri mantra, speaks the gayatri mantra into the ear of the person being initiated. It is supposed to be recited both in the morning and the evening. Ideally, it should be recited 16 times a day. And there's a special counting method which is used when you recite it 16 times a day. It begins with your right hand and the ring finger of your right hand. Now, if you have two rings like I do, it gets confusing which one is the ring finger, but this is the little finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, index, and thumb. And these are the joints. And let's number the one near the palm is number 1, next middle one is number 2, and the last one is number 3. So if you do that, then with your thumb as your pointer, you start with the third joint of your ring finger. That's the one next to your little finger. Okay? So that becomes 1. You say it once, Gayatri Mantra once. Second time, second joint. Next time, third joint. Next, we move over to the left finger, the first joint, which is the one nearest the palm. Next, this joint, middle joint. Next, this joint. So you notice that what we have done is 3 plus 3 so far. Everybody with me? Okay, so you done 6, 3 plus 3. Now we go over to the little finger, this area, the surface area. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you said it 6 plus 4 times. Next we go down 1 on the index finger, the third joint. Next we go to the index finger, the same index finger, second joint, and first joint. That's another 3. Now you move over to the middle finger, the big finger, and that's your first joint, second joint, third joint. So if you add 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3, you get 16. Some of you might have seen I was trying to count with my fingers this way. The saying of the Gayatri Mantra 5 times a day is considered to be the equivalent of the 5 great sacrifices. Every Hindu is supposed to go through these 5 great sacrifices, the Panch Maha Yagya. The sacrifices are the sacrifice to Brahma, Yagya to Brahma, Brahma Yagya, which is your prayers to the Atman, the I am presence. Deva Yagya, which is prayers to lesser deities, so there would be perhaps unascended beings, elementals, devas. Bhut Yagya, which is prayers to the spirit world, could be elemental life, very similar to Dev Yagya. Pitra Yagya, which is the sacrifice to the ancestors. And what this does is it starts transmitting the karma in the ancestral line. So that's the idea behind the Pitra Yagya. So you don't have to reincarnate again, perhaps in the same line. And Manushya Yagya, that's the Manush means man, so that's the sacrifice to men, women. So that's the relationship between men and women, the resolving of the karmic entanglements, and in the 1990s, that also includes the inner child work and so on. And that's all I have on the mantra. Thank you.
That'll take care of us for a while.
So now we know, now that we have the visualization of Leadbeater's teachings on it. By the way, when we do this count over here, if you look at what it creates, you count down, and then you go up. and then you go up like this, like a semicircle, almost like the semicircle which he describes in the book. Then you go down, and then you go up. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsavitur Vareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvareniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om.
There is a small footnote in this chapter 6 of the Masters in the Path. So I'll read it to you. The literal rendering of this celebrated versicle into English is, Om, we adore the resplendent glory of Savitri, our Lord. May he inspire our devotion and understanding. But in the course of ages, it has come to imply to the devout Hindu very much more than is conveyed by the mere words. A Sanskrit scholar tells me that while the ordinary word for the sun is Surya, this especial title, Savitri, is used always to imply the sun, that is to say, the solar logos, as inspirer or encourager. It seems to have a signification closely allied to the word paraclete, which is often but very unsatisfactorily translated as the comforter. My friend also emphasizes the fact that this is not a prayer to the Logos to give us wisdom or devotion, but the expression of an earnest aspiration and resolve that his influence shall so act upon us as to call out and to strengthen that which already exists within us. When the Buddhist Tisarana is chanted, the angels that come are those especially associated with the yellow robe, and they bring with them a wonderful peace and joyousness, for although they are so peaceful, they are amongst the most joyous in the world. When we speak of angels as appearing, we must remember all the dimensions of space. They have not to come in the sense of starting from somewhere far away, from a far distant heaven, for example. I do not know whether I shall make the matter hopelessly puzzling if I put it that the great forces representing the Logos manifest in those particular forms in answer to the invocation. They are always there, always ready, but they turn themselves outward in response to the call. That is the whole history of that sort of prayer and its answer. We have only to think strongly of an idea, and that which ensouls it or represents it will manifest itself to us. Any strong thought of devotion brings an instant response. The universe would be dead if it did not. It is in the natural law that the response must come. The appeal and the reply are like the obverse and the reverse of a coin. The answer is only the other side of the request, just as we say of karma that the effect is on the other side of the cause. There is a wonderful unity in nature, but people enfold themselves so thickly in their personalities that they do not know anything about it. It is only a question of opening ourselves up. One can quite easily see that when we are able to yield ourselves to nature, we can practically command nature, because by the attitude we take, we can call forth its forces, and everything works with us. This is clearly explained in Light on the Path. We must recognize the forces of nature and open ourselves up to them, and because these powers are flowing with us, everything that before was difficult becomes so much easier. There is yet another section of the whole subject of mantras as to which I myself have very little information. There is the power not only of sound, but of words as such, as numbers, and even of letters. We do not trouble about these things in modern days, but in the Sanskrit and also in the Hebrew alphabet, every letter has its assigned value, not only of number, but also of power and color. I have known clairvoyants who see ordinary Roman letters as printed in our books, as each of a different color, A being always red, let us say B always blue, C yellow, D green, and so on. I have never had any such experience myself. I suppose my mind does not work in that way. Similarly, there are psychics who always see the days of the week as of different colors. That is not my experience. I am not sensitive in that way either, nor do I understand what is meant. That may perhaps be connected with astrological influences, I do not know. This aspect of things is also connected with mantras, and there is a school of mantrists who give to each letter a numerical value quite independent of its position in the alphabet. And they will tell you that if they add up the values which they assign to the letters of a given word or sentence, and so arrive at a certain total, and if the same total can be made by adding the letters of another word or group of words, the same mantric effect will be produced by the two sentences. But about that, I know nothing. The mantra is usually a short, strong formula, and when for any purpose we want to produce a decided effect, that is the kind of form that our adjuration must take. If we wish to affect people profoundly and rapidly when speaking to them, we must use sentences which are short and strong, not long and rambling. They must follow the line of the military command or of the mantra, and there must be a definite climax. Suppose we wish to help a person who is frightened. We may formulate within ourselves such words as, I am strong, strong, strong. I am part of God, and God is strength, so I am full of that strength. And the repetition of the idea will bring the divine strength within us to the surface, and we shall be able to inspire others with our courage. In this, as in all other lines, knowledge is power. If we wish to work to the best advantage, we must understand. And if we wish to understand, we must study. The wise man knows how to live in peace and happiness, because his life is in harmony with God's life. Comprehending all, he sympathizes with all. He has cast selfishness behind him forever, and he lives but to help and to bless. The requirements never change. In considering the different systems described above, it must not be imagined that their methods are mutually exclusive. Each plan contains something of nearly all the others. They are defined by that which dominates in each case, nor should it be supposed that any of them are strictly necessary. What is required is that which lies beneath all of them, the development of character. The development of character, purification of life, and devotion to service so strongly emphasized in At the Feet of the Master. From this comparison of the different systems, it will be seen that the qualifications which the aspirant must develop preparatory to the first great initiation are fundamentally the same, however much they may appear to differ at first glance. Certainly for 25 centuries, and probably for a long time before that, this quite systematic procedure has been followed with regard to the evolution of those special persons who persist in struggling ahead. And although at certain times circumstances are more favorable for initiation than at others, the requirements remain the same, and we must be careful not to fall into the erroneous thought that the qualifications have been in any way reduced. We thus find that these different lines all bring us to the same point of initiation. And this is the end of chapter 6. I would like to give you the opportunity to take the lectern, especially if you might be among those who may be leaving and may not be joining Darshan here, but in the places where you are going to. So if you have something to give or to receive, please come.
Hello, Mother and everyone. I had a question at the first part about the mantras. It was mentioning that some may be too high for people or even dangerous or whatever, and it was making me think about another story from India. Me and another person were on a bus, and it was full of people, and the typical Indian bus with all the Indian gods painted on the outside and all these things, and packed high with luggage, and they're very small, and we were squished in there with a lot of people. And this Indian sadhu, this priest, sat in front of us, and he definitely had some problems. He was talking to himself, and he was moving and twitching, and so the other person with me said, well, let's do some cyclopeas. So over there, it's not unusual to do mantras. So we start doing the mantra, and all that happens is everybody leans in and tries to learn your mantra. So we started doing the mantra, and after a while, he started taking his hand and hitting his third eye with it, like this. So we did those for a while, and he settled down a little, but he started getting, jumpy again. So we decided to do Estrellas. So we started doing Estrellas, and pretty soon he was over by the window, and pretty soon he had his head out the window. Pretty soon he had part of his body out the window, like he was trying to get away. So finally he kind of settled down, and he got real quiet after that, thank goodness. And the whole bus kind of settled down, because everybody was this energy was affecting everybody. And the thing about that time, this is just just something that goes with it, but my third eye opened, and I was looking at him because he was directly in the seat right in front of me, right here. And he was there, but at the same time, it was like if you took a can of fishing worms and you turn them upside down, all the fish tend to get in this big ball in the bottom of a can, and so there was this can of worms sitting there, So anyway, he settled down, but I was, thank goodness, but it gave me a great teaching. But I was thinking, is there any directive or anything? Is there a time when you maybe shouldn't do decrees, or of course you wouldn't do them over here out loud necessarily anyway.
What you do is if you see someone who is agitated, you can assess whether they're agitated because they're too young and very, very uptight, or much too yin, which Hindus tend to be when they are in a hot climate. And so if a person is agitating too much, then with the power of the mind, you use Estrellas, called to Archangel Michael. If you're not carrying your sword with you, you visualize the sword cutting the person free, and you do everything through the mind and through the third eye, so that the person's agitation in one direction or another will not be increased by the sacred fire that you are directing to him or her.
Yeah, because it could get dangerous seeing the way that affected him. There was no place for him to go, but...
Well, in India, people just flow with it,
Yeah, right.
You find people like that.
Yeah.
And then you find, very high-powered businessmen and
Right.
those also.
Right.
So
you need to be careful.
you need to do the inner work without the demons possessing a person even realizing you're doing the work.
Good evening, Mother. Good evening, everybody. I would like to witness our visit to the Cave of Symbols, Mother, on January the 1st, when Saint Germain told us we should go that night. And I guess we know where it is.
Raise your voice, please.
On January the 1st, is this okay? When Saint Germain told us to go to the Cave of Symbols, we went there, and it was shown to me a number of times, so I'd like to share what I've seen. We know that it's up in the Tetons on the physical level, near the Cathedral of Mountains, on the right-hand side where there's an expanse of snow. And at the point of the snow on the right, these are the sort of cave entrances. But whether we know or not, we just make our call to Saint Germain to go to the Cave of Symbols. And the first thing we did, we were shown, was we were standing before the cave. We put our hand up on the cave, and it opens, the doors open to a lift inside an escalator, which also opens in front of us. And we entered in this very large escalator. Looking up, you'd see that it had no roof, but we were looking at the inside of beautiful amethyst crystal, and could feel the vibration of violet already as the lift went down very deep into the mountain. At a certain time, it stopped, and we went out on the right, the opposite side we went in, when the doors opened again. And there was an angel straight ahead of us. And this is a very large, open space. And the men were moved to the right and the women to the left, where there were a number of entrances on both sides in which we went. And these were purple, like purple pools we walked into, and were bathed, if you like, in this very purple pool, and totally cleansed. A pool of water, like purple. Pool, P-O-O-L is my European accent, right? Sorry. And we stayed in that. We could individually stayed in that. This was like being cleansed came out, and before us we saw a number of tunics of different colours. We chose whichever one we liked, and then went back into the main hall where all of us were gathering. And it seemed that according to the tunic we chose was whatever we needed to do. If we chose a yellow or a blue or a white one, we needed to look at the threefold flame, and we were brought into a beautiful room and individually sat before the Buddha, where the flame of our own threefold flame was, and was able to be shown the flame in terms of how strong the blue was, or how strong the golden yellow was, or how strong the pink flame was for us, and which was the shorter of the ones. And we're given the exercise to go within the Buddha to be very much at peace. If it was, let's say, the pink flame we were short on, we were then shown how to send out love from sitting within the Buddha to everybody and to the whole world, and so expand this flame. And this was the exercises here. And further on, we were shown some other rooms where there were other places, other types of exercises to expand our third eye or our visualization. For example, there was a little waterfall in the middle of a room where we would sit before, and we would say a decree and get for that waterfall to rise higher and higher and higher with our decree. And another room had stalactites, whereby which we stood underneath and tried to visualize down a violet ray upon us. And we knew that these were exercises. The final room on the right was a portrait of Saint Germain, which we, when we called to him, we concentrated on him sufficiently for him to actually be quite strong before us. And when we reached that stage, we knew that we had passed that particular area of tests. We were ready to move on. And we moved out from that area. On the left side, there were other rooms, one counseling room, and other rooms which we were shown where people practiced decreeing before a mirrored wall and could see their chakras when they were decreeing, and where there was a decree room, which was a circular amphitheater where we sat and decreed as a group of people and watched a flame, violet flame, rise in the center of the room as we decreed stronger and stronger. And on the dome of this little ceiling was the map of the world, which we were watching the flame to go on this map. And when we reached the stage, my understanding was this was like our decontamination stage. We were cleaned up and helped to focus at this early stage. And the understanding we're given was that this is a physical. The cave of symbols was very physical at one level and very etheric, and leads to the etheric level afterwards. And by doing exercises which we could become quite familiar with, we were able to accept then the next set of exercises. And if we'd, I presume, achieved sufficient light within us, we could then move through the threshold, which was a very large door, by placing our hands on it. And if the door opened, we'd pass on into the next. It's like the bottom figure 8 we were in, and we were moving up to the next top figure 8 of the lower level of the Cave of Symbols. And if we saw that there were 8 figure 8s, like a whole octave there, that we needed to go through certain tests and initiations, things that we learned. So when the doors opened, you would see a long corridor, right, like an orange in segments, and you open back the segments, you see all the little stages. They were like arches. And if you look at a run of arches in front of you, like 12 of them, very aligning effect. And each had a flame within it. And if we stood on the threshold, moving in the nexus from one part of the 8 to the other, we went through a flame. This is very individual. Nobody does this as a group. It was wherever we were. And it seems that we were on the ground floor, the first level. There is a room there for us to see, like a mirrored room where we could see all. You stand in the middle of it and you could see your chakras, you could see what condition your particular chakra was in and what work you needed to do. And then you went through different tests or different exercises to help to clear that particular chakra. At the next level up, there would be, this is the second ray, I think it was, looking at the blocks in our mental blocks, and there was a room which, if you could be shown the blocks you had and the hang-ups you had by somebody pressing your button, so to speak, talking about a particular area in which you felt very strongly or had a block about, and the thought form came towards the force field, and boomeranged back, in other words, never penetrated. And this was shown so that you could see where you had your blocks by seeing these thought forms going back. And that particular level then consisted of exercises to clear our own blocks. The next level up from that in the flame was the illumination room, which was the room where we met that night with Saint Germain. And it consisted of a beautiful room, paneling on the walls, wooden panelings, and on the floors with carpets, and the illumination flame in the center table, and one flame on crystal on the middle of each of the four walls. And Saint Germain was sitting beside one of these, wearing a purple tunic and gold, in a sort of very relaxed fashion. And we came in and sat some by his feet, some on different chairs around the room, and were having a discussion with him on what I noticed was that other people came into the room as if they were experts, like some military people, and other people came in to answer questions or to be present for a short period of time. And the pictures on the panels in each wall, there were a number of panels, seemed to change to help us to learn more about whatever subject we were. The understanding of this room, of the illumination room, was that any time we had a problem, we could go into that particular room, sit by the flame, and ask for advice on how to sort out this problem, and would be given advice from experts from like the universal mind. That's the second ray. As we moved up, I was shown the next figure of 8 had the lower part breaking down what the blocks were in the heart chakra, and the upper part were building up the heart chakra. And within this retreat, we were given exercise to help people and to expand our heart and to get familiar with Saint Germain's purple fiery heart, and so on. All the rays of the different rays going up, we got different exercises, and were shown every time we moved. This is not done in one night. I just was showing it, but we, as souls, take our own time to go through all of this. As we go up the different rays, up to the 8th ray, we're given different exercises. And then having reached the top, we've just begun, because we've just started to become familiar with what is required for our refining. So we start all over again and again and again and again, going through all these exercises, but seeing our chakras in the mirror room, and seeing our own thought forms or other people's boomeranging away from us, and learning so much at some depth, more and more, until we got to a level of refinement. And what I understood was that by our own level of consciousness in the earth is very narrow, like 1/16 of an octave, and and our threefold flame is 1/16 of his size, and our lifespan is 1/16 of his normal length, which it was 999. So what we were being shown is that we can rise up and work in the etheric levels. We go through these particular exercises in the cave of symbols and realize that we are moving up into the levels that we're more comfortable with each time, and are learning to live in the etheric octave more so than just being confined to a narrow plane. I know there is when we come, I think my understanding was that we could come to this place anytime, even during the day, should we wish, and to go in to either get some cleansing or to get advice, or so that the more we can use it, the better it is for us. And it seemed to me that this was a wonderful, practical and physical sort of way of showing us what was there. I think I've covered everything that I've seen. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So it shows us how intricate is each step and stage of the ascension.
Yeah.
And that if we don't build a firm foundation at the base, then when we get up at the 6th or the 7th level, we could find the base crumbling because we have not built aright. We have not stayed at that level until we have such a strong foundation that we are enabled to go to the next level.
Yes.
And the next and the next.
Yes.
And I think that many of us have different concepts of where we are on the path. Some of us think we are so lowly that we don't even merit being noticed by Saint Germain, and others have the other extreme of feeling that they are so exalted that they have nothing to do but wait for the archangels to escort them to heaven, kind of thing, you know. So it's important to us that we hear what you are saying, and that the masters have given you this gift for us, because the intricacies of the ascension are great. I know many great beings of light who have made their ascension but not balanced 100% of their karma. I know them in the octaves of light, and I know the tremendous striving and work one has to accomplish to just increase the levels of balanced karma by 1%, 2%, 3%. But here in the earth, we have tremendous opportunity to balance karma and move forward. And when we also have access to the physical/etheric octave, and we can see before us, as though we were in a schoolroom at whether kindergarten or university level, when we can see how much work we have to do, then we have the perspective that enables us to look at our present age, look at the possibilities of how long we may live, and then look at each day and write on it for the rest of our lives and say, in this day I must accomplish this, because I will not have this day again. This day will not come back to me. So I think that what Saint Germain is giving to us, along with Serapis Bey in your last report, is the realization that we need to look at the economy of our lives, know that we can complete and do all things, but that we don't have any time to waste. That every 24 hours is another cycle, as you have just talked about cycles. Every 24 hours is a cycle in which we are meant to accomplish something. And then the next cycle, we're building on the previous accomplishment. So my concern about all chelas here and throughout the world is you either underestimate just how challenging is the path, or you overestimate it and then become so overwhelmed that you feel you cannot even begin to make it in this life. So there is a middle way in the center, and God has prepared a place for us. Jesus has prepared a place for us, Saint Germain. But we have a timetable, and I'd like everyone here tonight to go home and figure out how you're going to make a chart of your timetable of what you feel you have as the remainder of your allotted span. And then say to yourself, Can I balance my 51%? And can I balance more? What do I have to do? And can I do it in this time frame?
May I tell you what I was shown, which was a book? Would you open the book and it said chapter 1, and it was the Ascension of Patricia. You turn over chapter 2 was a visit to the Cave of Symbols, an introduction of Saint Germain. Turn over chapter 3, it was the Lord of the World, when he was involved with the clearings at December 31st of this year with the unascended master of the Himalayas and other souls from all around. Turn over, the next chapter was Lord Maitreya, which was a visit to his etheric retreat and understanding of Summit University. Turn over chapter 5, and that's as far as I can see or is shown at the moment. So is it okay I come back and report on the others when they're very clear? Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering if Karanjit could spell the word that meant divinely heard and then the one that meant that which is remembered.
Oh, I see. Wait, that's Shruti is S-H-R-U-T-I. Remembered S-M-I-R-I-T-I. These are actually transliterations, which means that they look at the actual Sanskrit word, and one letter is two English letters. So that's why the spelling seems to be a little bit strange. But Shruti and Smriti.
Okay, thank you. And you asked people to come to the microphone who may be leaving. I don't consider myself as really leaving, but for those of you who don't know, I'll be attending school close by, so I'll be back and forth. But I did want to take this opportunity to say that I've been on staff for 12 years, and I wouldn't trade that time for anything in the world. And as I've been packing and getting ready to go to school, I've been reflecting on those 12 years and thinking of the times I've shared with all of you, and also the time I've worked in Montessori and some of the hysterical things that have happened, but also the great spiritual growth that I've experienced, and also the opportunity to work with Mother. And for anyone that thinks that staff life is difficult or terrible, or you just can't do it, or it's I know people hear all kinds of stories. Well, you really have to come here for yourself and see. And I know you guys know that here, but the people on the patch, they need to know that too, that it's a place that it's like God sets it up here so that you can find Him. And you live here and it's quiet, it's conducive to meditation. We have a guru that can help us. There's nowhere else on the planet you can find this kind of experience, I don't think, unless you go to India or something. But anyway, I just wanted to express my gratitude to Mother and to everyone. And can I tell a little story about Seth? It's very brief.
Yes.
I said, Seth, now I'm going to be going to college, and I'll be close by. I will still see you, but I'm going to college. I'm going to study. I have to read a lot of books. I'm going to get my credential in education. So he's very busy listening to me, and he has this very serious look on his face. And so then a little while later he said, well, Mrs. Allen, I'm going to college too. And I said, oh, you are? He goes, yes, my own college. And he says, I'm going to buy a computer. So anyway, thank you very much, Mother.
I think we're at the point this evening where if we leave now, we will be bright and shiny tomorrow morning and ready to tackle our Thursday. So I want to thank you very much, Karanjit. We would like to continue with you in learning how to do our fingers and do our mantras, and especially this most important mantra. So we need to have a very sharp recording of it and give it again and again. I think it's a very great blessing that it's in this book, and a very great blessing that you can give us all the teachings that we have been looking for from the many teachers who've come out of India, flocking to the West and impressing people in the United States. And most of the ones I've seen, with a very exceptional few, have not been truly centered in God or centered in their own path of Hinduism, but very much desirous of making money off of gullible students who think they are finding a guru when they're finding a charlatan. So right here in our midst we have this very precious treasure of Karanjit, who can, every week, as far as we're concerned, teach us a new mantra, right? Let us sing to India, 454. (614).
Let
to our beloved El Moria. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Divine Mother, we send forth all the love of our hearts to our beloved El Moria and the Darjeeling Council. We call for great abundance from our causal bodies to be able to be laid upon the altar of the heart of our beloved El Moria, that you might have that energy, that momentum, that sacred fire of our beings as we stand by you and our beloved Saint Germain for the victory of this century and the victory of the Golden Age. In the flame of the Holy Spirit, purge us, O God, and bring us to new levels of consciousness, ever one with Thee. Amen.